they're not happy with it. And so by doing that, they're using these opportunities to kind of deter us from their product. So that's my thought.
That's good. Miss Ebony.
Can you give me the live feed again?
Oh, www.letsgothere, LETS, go there, radioshow.com.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You are.
I honestly think I did a little research on the creative director, and he's one of those guys that are like he's artsy, and he has he literally has 6 different copies of Alice in Wonderland, type of guy, just real out there. And I think that what happened is, number one, I think he knew what he was doing, but he looked at, this is art, this is something that it's not controversial because it's art, because that's just his thing. He uses art as a muse for his designs. And so, number one, that's what happened. But number two, not having that diversity on staff to do the checks and balances and say, hey, you think it's art, however, this is racism. This has a historical sting to black people in America. But I think that even if he had those checks and balances, unfortunately, he probably thought it was okay because we still wear Gucci regardless. So if they see that we're hip hop is the number one consumer, of Gucci. So therefore, why do we even have to have those checks and balances? Because they're going to wear it anyway. They're going to promote us regardless of, just like Floyd. What did Floyd do? He promoted it anyway. So therefore, okay, even if it caused a controversy, they're still going to consume.
And we're going to come back to that point. But as you were talking, it just made me think about, because Marshawn, you said, not having that diversity on staff. But then I'm going to flip it and say, even if you don't have a black person on staff or, a minority, white folks, they know our history. Yeah. Yes, they do. Somebody should have spoke up in that room and said, this is not right. I know there was had to be some conscious white people in that room. You know what I'm saying? Not all of them could have been racist. Somebody had to be conscious.
Somebody was tasting the Kool-Aid back in the
right.
40s.
Somebody.
Right.
So somebody
in the 30s. Somebody was right there.
This
the juke places.
I completely agree with you, Sassy. You have to be living literally under a rock not to know that was inappropriate.
But I can go back to his idea of they may have not been here in America and seen this. So I can see them not knowing back the history, right? Yeah. Possibly. Because they're not all Americans.
The world
However, but they may not know the intricate pieces. Yeah. Just like we get the his story, they probably got the his story too, but not the history. So they may not know like the deep parts of it. But they knew this last 2-3 years. You got to know that part. Like, you can't be that oblivious. And in your house, like, you're in your culture now. We're not talking about outside the culture where, you see bombings and half of us don't even know that there's bombings still happening.
Right.
But in your culture, your fashion, you knew that H&M took a big hit.
Right.
Gap took a big hit. You knew that these were happening. Prada was taking a big hit, but you kept going. I just can't believe it.
Sean, I'm going to give you the opportunity to answer that question. We'll come back to you, Marsha. Sean, I'll give you the opportunity to answer that question. Why do you think marketing or brands continue to be disrespectful to minorities openly?
Indeed. So I absolutely agree with what you said about the consciousness of the white people in those rooms. I agree with you with the lack of diversity, and I think that was a deterrent as well to get people to really recognize. It's just blatant now. Like it's nothing that's swept under the rug. It's blatant because of technology and just the whole aura of social media and what it is now. So with matters like this, if you don't have an ally within that room, if you're not represented properly in that room, how will we stop that from getting to the board, getting to the market to be a product in our communities? How do we stop that? They send it off to China, get it made, and then it's mass produced on social media or whatever marketing channels they have. So we can't even prevent it because we're not in the room to prevent it. So I think that's where we start getting representation in the room. But then when we get in the room, have the mindset that, okay, we are in the room, we see how things work, let's build our own. That's where we need to get to, in all honesty. But that's just my...
So the second part of that question is, who should we hold accountable when this happens? And how can we prevent it from happening going forward? So somebody needs to be held accountable. Who should we hold accountable? Because we keep getting these half-ass apologies. Excuse my language, but that's what we get. You know, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you sorry. I ain't know. You sorry, but you keep doing it.
I say nobody.
So,
I mean, the best thing you can do is just pull your black dollar away. Right. But what we have to do is get the hip hop industry on board with not promoting, because going back to the 80s. Gucci was like, I mean, this was not a household name. Nobody can even afford Gucci in the black community. First of all, nobody we make $30-something thousand median income as black people in America anyway. Who's buying Gucci? Do you have Gucci? I don't have any. I just knew you had Gucci, Marshawn. None. I mean, it's not even on our radar. Oh my God! You know what I'm saying? A keychain. If I get a keychain or something, but I mean, it's not even on our radar. Right? Okay, Uchi. It's not even on our radar. So, but who makes it relevant is hip hop, right? And who's made it relevant is hip hop since the '80s. And the interesting story is, because they pulled in Dapper Dan. This was before this whole controversy, and you know he wanted them to be held accountable, and so they pulled in more black folks to have a more inclusive staff and so forth, and so he did this major thing to bring that diversity. However, the weird thing is Gucci actually shut Dapper Dan down in the 80s because he was reappropriating their brand. He was taking their clothing, making them into his own as a designer. They caught wind of it. They shut him down and put him out of business. Yeah. And now they brought him in. And that's the interesting part. And I'll say it's strategic, because
absolutely,
because Dapper Dan is affiliated with the hip hop industry. So in order for them to stay marketable and actually stay afloat within our community, because of course we are very huge consumers of apparel. Then why not bring in Dapper Dan? Why not restart that whole cycle all over again of us being apparel conscious? We had what we calling white girls back then? We had white girls and Cash Bargain Center. You know what I'm saying? Happy with those kind of clothes. We didn't care what Target, Cash Bargain. I went all the way. Zayres, Ames, you know what I'm saying? All that. Zayres, Ames, whatever. We was happy with those brands. But all of a sudden, when hip-hop came about, we started looking at our peers as if you're not this unless you have that, And so maybe this is an opportunity. So I say let's not hold them accountable because we don't need them. We don't need their industry.
But until we get there, because we haven't got there yet, where we don't. So until we get there, who should be held accountable, Marshawn?
So what I'd like to put on the table is we've been talking about corporations, and I think you were getting at like corporate strategy. Patrice, you were kind of getting there too. I own Facebook stock, and every once in a while, quarterly, they'll send me a little note. I don't know. I got maybe 13 stocks or whatever, or shares. They'll send me a little note and invite me to a meeting or a call to just be there. And when they're talking about the business of the organization, you can pipe in and say, this is my concern. Now, when Nike took their position on Kaepernick and had him, as the feature of their campaign, folks thought, the floor was going to fall out. Nike's stock actually went up. Right. And so I think corporations are becoming very savvy in that regard and trying to look at their stock price and their valuations and trying to figure out how, what they can do to increase that. I think we need to be on the investor side. Before if we can't get to the brand, we need to corporate takeover. If we can't build our own brands yet, then why not invest in their stocks, get some dividends, and pump that into our own brands? That's right.
right. That's why you're gonna be the black economist.
Y'all
right?
said,
That's
things,
awesome.
yeah. So that's.
Should we invest in Gucci, or you say invest in Gucci, or invest in our own?
I think what we want to do is have our own.
Okay.
But I think
Gotcha.
so. One of the things, the other things I'm doing right now is I'm looking at dividend stocks because the most important thing, is transferring wealth to my son. And so I don't even really care about the day-to-day price of it as long as I get my dividend, because that dividend goes to I have it where it's set up where it goes to an account. Most of the time you should probably reinvest it, but I can take that money and invest it in my business, or I can put it in his savings account, or I can do whatever to support my brand. And so then if Gucci gets stupid and maybe white people just decide that they're going to buy all that stuff, we get their money. We take their money, their racist money, put it all in where we need it to be, and they can't hurt us. And we still get to show up at their meeting and tell them how bad they are.
Which is exactly what they do for us,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So when we talk about power and power dynamics, sometimes we forget how much our power is there, and we need to elevate it and move it around so that we are in control. And so when we start buying from the back end, then we have the say, we have the power, and we have the ability to move things around. And so I don't believe that there's any accountability, because when we do accountability, it's just moving the blame around. There's still no action is being held. So until we get to that part where the power is being distorted, then we're not going to change anything. And accountability, I don't care how many apologies they say, it's not going to mean anything, because they're still in the back end running everything that they need to. And then as far as buying our own and starting our own, we still need to do that. But just like with FUBU and Gucci and True Colors or Colors, Carcanai, all of those, once they got so high,
they
got bought out
Sure did.
because the people with the power or with the money power, were able to do that. So we're up there where they are. We can stop them from trying to buy them out when they feel like they have a threat. And then that's when our power is even increased or monopolized.
So we talk about power. So that kind of flows into our next question. Actually, how do we leverage our buying power to collectively make an impact on companies' bottom line when things like this happen?
I'm gonna let y'all go first because I think I'm a dare to be different on this one, so I'm gonna let y'all.
So, Patrice, our power person at the end, how do we leverage our power to collectively make an impact?
Well, first of all, I think we just need to recognize our power. So many times we don't know, or we don't give enough credit for ourselves. We have one of the highest buying apparel cultures in the world. If we just recognize that and really move our needle that way, and then two, take the instance and put the power back in ourselves instead of saying, and I'm so guilty of this. My son wants felines, right? And I'm like, what? Felines? Those are generic. We didn't wear felines. We stopped wearing those a long time ago. What are you doing? And they're coming back. And I was talking about him. I was like, we're not wearing no felines. And I was like, wait a minute. Why not? Why should we be so branded into these, Nikes and things like that, when if he wants to wear some felines, wear some felines. It's $50 cheaper. Go ahead.
Right.
So we just have to change our mind. And then once we change our mind and start looking at what are those red tapes that keep us stuck in this cycle, then then it'll help us be a little bit more powerful.
Ebony, go ahead and answer that question before we go.
Okay. Well, I think we can leverage our buying power by honestly. I mean, if we're talking about apparel companies, I honestly think we should renegotiate that money and renegotiate our buying power to something else. Because I pulled up some statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it says that we as black folks, we spend 37% on apparel versus 25% of our white counterparts. However,
37% on apparel.
37.
So apparel would be tennis shoes,
clothing, right?
Yeah, okay.
But
Accessories.
right, exactly. But get this, we spend only 14% for education versus 26% for our white counterparts.
Wow. So
I say, rather than focusing on apparel and that industry, focusing on actually putting our money somewhere else. Now, I mean, having money in that business, since we are consumers, and for some reason, we make everything cool. So if we make it cool, then even white folks can capitalize, or not capitalize, benefit from us, and we benefit from them being the consumers. So we just still put our eggs in that basket. However, put that money towards education. Let's renegotiate it towards medicine. healthcare.
But that has
all
to
those
be a
things.
value in our community.
Yeah.
So when you